Have you ever really thought about what happens when an intelligence way, way smarter than us gets into finance? And I'm not talking about some far-off sci-fi movie. I'm talking about a tech wave that is already here, and it's about to completely change not just the stock market, but our whole idea of an economy.
This sentence right here, it perfectly captures the massive shift we're about to walk through. You see, artificial intelligence is moving from being a really fancy calculator that helps us guess better to being an active, independent player in the global economy. And this whole transformation, it's going to happen in three distinct phases.
So in this explainer, we're going to take a trip through this timeline. First up is the age of artificial narrow intelligence, or ANI. That's what's happening right now, and it'll probably go until about 2030. Then we'll jump ahead to the era of artificial general intelligence, AGI, kicking off around 2030. And finally, we'll peek into the future at artificial superintelligence, or ASI, which some predict could show up around 2040. We're going to break down what each of these phases really means for the market, see how they're different, and look at the risks they bring. And we'll wrap up with a really important question about our own future in a world that's run by AI. Okay, let's dive right in with the AI that's already a part of our lives. Phase 1, the era of artificial narrow intelligence. This is the age of acceleration, and believe me, we are smack in the middle of it. So what is ANI, really? Well, think of it as a specialist. It's incredibly powerful, but only at one specific thing. The AI tools we're all using today, perfect examples. They can summarize a 100-page financial report in seconds or figure out the mood of 1 million people on social media. But they can't just invent a whole new economic theory from scratch. And the impact is just huge. AIs can read corporate earnings the second they're released. They can look at satellite photos of parking lots and predict sales figures. They can even gauge public feeling from social media posts. But you know what the real game changer is? These tools aren't just for the big Wall Street firms anymore. They're available to pretty much everyone, which levels the playing field. And the results? A market that moves at a speed that's almost impossible to comprehend. So what's the downside? What's the danger in a world filled with these super fast specialist AIs? Well, it's that they all start to think alike. If you have millions of AIs all trained on similar data, and they all react to a piece of news in the exact same way at the exact same millisecond, you could trigger a flash crash, a massive sudden market collapse before a single human even has a chance to figure out what's going on. All right, let's move on to the next phase, which should start around 2030. And this is where the story gets really, really interesting. This is the dawn of artificial general intelligence, or AGI, the rise of the autonomous manager. The leap here is just monumental. See, an ANI is a tool. You tell it what to do, and it does it. But an AGI, which has intelligence on par with a human, well, it's not a tool anymore. It becomes the decision maker. It's not the analyst's assistant. It is the autonomous fund manager. And you can see how this unfolds. An AGI isn't just going to follow the rules we give it. It's going to watch the economy, develop its own unique theories, and build investment strategies based on a level of reasoning we might not be able to follow. It'll be watching every market and every language 24/7. And this leads to something called disintermediation, which is really just a fancy way of saying it cuts out the human middleman. The jobs of analysts and financial advisors, they could become a thing of the past.
I mean, just think about what that really means. The whole boom and bust cycle that has defined our economies for centuries, it partly exists because humans are bad at predicting the future. But what if an AGI can predict economic shifts with stunning accuracy? It might price those changes into the market years ahead of time, which could smooth out, shorten, or maybe even completely break the economic cycles we've always known.
But all this incredible power comes with a huge risk. As an AGI's thinking gets more and more complex, we could run into the black box problem. The AGI makes a massive, world-changing trade, and when we ask it, why did you do that? The answer is a chain of logic so complicated that it's just beyond what a human mind can grasp. And how do you regulate something you don't even understand?
Okay, now we are heading into the really speculative part of our future, starting around 2040. This is phase 3, the arrival of artificial superintelligence, or ASI. We're talking about an intellect that is greater than the combined intelligence of every human on Earth. This isn't just about changing the market. It's about redefining what a market even is.
With ASI, the market could finally achieve something it's always been chasing, the perfection of prediction. An ASI could potentially calculate everything, from the laws of physics to the most complex human social dynamics. And if that happens, the very ideas of risk and uncertainty, the engines that drive finance, could just disappear.
The consequences are just mind-bending. If you can perfectly predict prices, arbitrage, profiting from tiny price differences, is gone. If an AISI can perfectly optimize how we use all the resources on the planet, it could eliminate scarcity, which is the entire foundation of economic value. The profit motive that powers capitalism might become totally irrelevant. The stock market as we know it would stop being a human place. Over 99.9% of trades would just be high-speed data exchanges between different AISI systems.
In a world like that, what we call stock prices today might just become another variable, another data point in a vast societal operating system managed by the ASI. Humanity's role in the economy could shift from being in the driver's seat to just being a passenger, or maybe even just another component in the machine.
Wow, okay, that was a pretty wild journey. Let's pull back for a second and bring it all together by comparing these three phases of AI's evolution in the market side by side. Now, what's so interesting when you lay it all out like this is you see this clear progression. We go from a role of automation to autonomous decisions and finally to complete governance of the system. The impact ramps up from just making the market faster to replacing human jobs to completely redefining the market itself. And just look at the risks. They evolve from technical problems like flash crashes to philosophical ones like uncontrollable AI, and finally to the existential risk of humanity losing its agency in the world. And that brings us to our final big question. As we hand over more and more of our economic world to intelligences that are so much greater than our own, we have to ask ourselves, in an economy that's been perfected, optimized, and is governed by AI, what is the purpose and the role of humanity? That is the challenge we all need to start thinking about today.